Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. Your brain is lying to you right now. It's telling you there are things you simply can't do, skills you'll never master, and heights you'll never reach. Today, we're exposing this deception by diving into the science of mindset, how your beliefs about abilities shape everything from learning to resilience to success. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how your mindset affects your brain, your potential, and most importantly, how to harness this knowledge to transform your capabilities. Let me bring in our expert to unpack this fascinating topic.
Thanks. You know, what's really fascinating is that mindset isn't just some feel-good concept. It's rooted in decades of rigorous research, particularly the groundbreaking work of Dr. Carol Dweck at Stanford University.
Oh, really? Tell us more about what the research shows.
Well, Dweck identified two primary mindsets, fixed and growth. A fixed mindset assumes abilities are static. You're either naturally good at something or you're not. A growth mindset, on the other hand, sees abilities as developable through effort and learning.
That makes sense. I guess we all know people who seem stuck in both those mindsets.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how these mindsets affect our brain's actual function. Recent neuroimaging studies show that people with growth mindsets have increased activity in their prefrontal cortex, the area associated with complex thinking and problem solving.
Wait, so you're saying our beliefs literally change our brain activity?
Absolutely. And it goes even deeper. When people with fixed mindsets face challenges, their amygdala, the brain's stress center, tends to become more active, triggering anxiety and avoidance behaviors.
You know, this reminds me of something fascinating in gaming. I've noticed how some players handle losses completely differently than others.
That's a perfect example. Players with a growth mindset are more likely to see losses as learning opportunities, while those with fixed mindsets might see them as proof they're just not good at gaming.
Let's talk about something really relevant, mental health. How does mindset play into that?
This is crucial. A recent study published in PLOS Mental Health tracked people during the COVID-19 pandemic and found that those with growth mindsets showed lower levels of depression and higher levels of well-being.
That's remarkable. Did they figure out why?
Yes, it appears that people with growth mindsets were better able to adapt their daily routines and cope with uncertainty. They saw the challenges as temporary and manageable rather than overwhelming and permanent.
You know what's interesting? This reminds me of the placebo effect in medicine.
Absolutely. In fact, research shows that belief can trigger actual neurochemical changes. A 2014 meta-analysis found that in many cases, the placebo effect had comparable results to active medication, especially for pain and depression.
That's mind-blowing. Our beliefs literally changing our biology.
And here's something even more fascinating. Mindset affects how we process moral complexity and emotional intelligence.
Really? How so?
Studies show that people with growth mindsets tend to have higher emotional intelligence and better handle moral gray areas. They're more comfortable with complexity and uncertainty.
Let's talk about education. How does mindset affect learning?
This is where the research gets really compelling. Students with growth mindsets are more likely to embrace challenges and persist through difficulties. They see effort as a path to improvement rather than a sign of inadequacy.
But isn't this just about being positive?
No, it's much more than that. It's about understanding how learning actually works in the brain. Recent studies in neuroplasticity show our brains continue forming new neural connections throughout our lives.
So our brains are literally growing when we learn?
Exactly. And understanding this can transform how people approach challenges. When you know your brain can change and grow, you're more likely to persist through difficulties.
What about cultural differences? Does mindset work the same way across different cultures?
That's a crucial question. Recent research shows that mindset interventions need to be culturally grounded to be most effective. Different cultures may have different beliefs about learning and ability.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Studies show that educational disparities can be reduced when interventions acknowledge and validate multiple cultural models of learning, rather than assuming one approach fits all.
That makes a lot of sense. How do teachers play into this?
Teachers are crucial. Research shows they communicate mindset through both informal messages about growth and formal opportunities to improve, like learning-focused grading policies.
So it's not just about telling students they can improve?
No, it's about creating what researchers call a mindset culture, an environment that consistently reinforces the idea that abilities can be developed.
Let's talk about the workplace. How does mindset affect professional development?
Recent research shows that companies with a growth mindset culture see better employee engagement and innovation. They're more likely to take on challenges and learn from failures.
That's fascinating. What about leadership?
Leaders with growth mindsets tend to develop stronger teams because they focus on developing talent rather than just identifying it. They see potential in people rather than fixed abilities.
You mentioned earlier about mindset during COVID. Can you elaborate on that research?
Yes, the study tracked 454 adults over 2 years during the pandemic. Those with growth mindsets showed remarkably better adjustment and mental health outcomes.
That's incredible. Were there any age differences?
Actually, yes. The study found benefits across all age groups, from 19 to 89 years old. This suggests mindset's importance throughout the entire lifespan.
Let's talk about practical applications. How can people develop a growth mindset?
It starts with understanding that the brain is like a muscle. It gets stronger with use. Research shows that even understanding this basic principle can begin to shift your mindset.
Any specific strategies?
Yes, several key approaches have been validated by research. First, focus on the process rather than just outcomes. Second, embrace challenges as opportunities to learn. Third, view failures as feedback rather than endpoints.
What about praise? Does it matter how we praise others?
Absolutely. Research shows that praising effort and strategies rather than natural ability helps foster a growth mindset. Instead of saying, "You're so smart," say, "You worked really hard to figure that out."
That's a subtle but important difference.
And it has remarkable effects. Studies show that this type of praise helps people persist longer on challenging tasks and recover better from setbacks.
What about the relationship between mindset and creativity?
Research indicates that people with growth mindsets tend to be more creative because they're less afraid of making mistakes and more willing to try new approaches.
That makes sense. They probably see creative ability as something that can be developed.
Exactly. And this extends to innovation in any field. Whether it's art, science, or business, a growth mindset helps people push boundaries and explore new possibilities.
As we wrap up, what's the most important thing for our listeners to remember about mindset?
The key is understanding that mindset itself isn't fixed. Just as we can develop our abilities, we can develop our mindset. It's a powerful tool for personal growth and resilience.
And it's backed by solid science, not just positive thinking.
Absolutely. The research is clear. Our beliefs about our abilities profoundly impact our brain function, learning, and achievement. It's not just psychology, it's biology.
This has been incredibly enlightening. Any final thoughts?
Remember, every time you face a challenge, you have a choice. You can see it as a threat to your abilities or an opportunity to grow. That choice shapes not just your response, but your brain itself.
Thank you for sharing all this fascinating research. And to our listeners, your brain might have been lying to you when we started, but now you know the truth. Your potential isn't fixed, it's growing right now.
And that truth changes everything.